Hello, everyone. Welcome to Neureal Architecture Q A. I'm going to. It's kind of winging it here for the first time. I haven't really set everything up particularly, but I'm going to go ahead and try to get some more people in here so we can chat. I've got some questions and answers as well. So I will do that right now. There were some developers. I don't know if any of you are, if you're none, or some of you aren't in the developer chat. Then we've got some new people that are working on the project that had some questions, and I figured I'd just get on here and make a live stream, and so that everybody could get in on it. So I don't have to. So everybody could watch this, and I could tell people about it as well. So let me figure out how to get the link here. All right. And hopefully we can get some people in here. For all you watching up there later, sorry for the delay there. Anyway, there's Alexander joined us. So he's one of the guys. He's came up with a bunch of questions, and let's see if there's a way we can add him to the stream so that he can chat. I don't know if he wants to, but he's going to chat on there anyway. So I guess that works out. So that'll still be okay. So, right, I am going to, there we go. It's a little better. See me a little bit bigger. Maybe that's all better. Okay. So there could be, Alexander is just on the chat. I guess people are just on the chat. So, all right. So I'm just going to go through his questions, and I'll answer anything too that he has, that he talks about in the chat. So I'll try to keep everybody updated on that. This particular type of streaming may or may not, or I don't know if it's if there's a way to add people in, kind of like you do a Hangouts or whatever. Usually we do that, and we have a couple people that we can chat with or whatever, and but I don't know if this particular type. This is like the video streaming on YouTube, so I'm not seeing any way to do that here. So anyway, so we'll just do it this way for now. So so Alexander had some questions here, so I'll just start with the first one. So the question is how will Neureal work with Singularity Net? So that's Singularity Net is a project that is probably the biggest AI and blockchain project out there that I know of. They did a lot of advertisement. They have Ben Grotzel on their team, who's a really well-known researcher, and they decided to pick a narrow kind of thing, but very important part of the whole artificial intelligence and blockchain. So we actually, in our white paper, talk about a marketplace, and that's the same. That's what they're creating. So they're creating something that we realized we needed when we started the project 5 years ago. So it's great. We're really happy that they are taking that on. It wasn't really. We never had it developed very far, and we never tried. We didn't do much. We talked about it in our white paper. Some people tend to get the idea also that that our network or our platform, it's more of a network, but our network is a marketplace. But technically it's not. I don't think it fits the term marketplace. So what they're doing is more of a marketplace, where you buy and sell. You put up orders for something and you buy and sell it, and that's it's very generic, and like for them it's about data, buying and selling data, and AI services on that data. So and maybe models or whatever. So it's just AI focused marketplace, right? So so I'm reading through some of Alexander's ideas about what those answers might be, kind of the way he's seeing it. So the question is how do we see us integrating with SingularityNet or with the marketplace in general, whether it's SingularityNet or anybody else that does a marketplace? How would we integrate? So the Neureal network is a blockchain that is built that's built to be a prediction network. So a prediction competition network. So what I mean by that is that you have our oracles. We call them oracles because they provide the data that's predicted, but not the data to be predicted. I mean, they're not the data used. It's the data to be. Sorry, it's the data to be predicted, not the data that you might use to predict. So Neureal is a blockchain, which means it's just like Ethereum or Bitcoin or something like that. And you sign the way you interact with it is through transactions, just like you would sign a transaction to send money somewhere, or you would create a contract with the transaction, or you would call a function with the transaction, like you do on Ethereum. On Neureal, you interact with it completely through transactions, and so you would send So first, the Oracle sends a transaction. So I'm just going to do kind of an quick overview of the text, so we can start off there. But so first, the Oracle sends a competition creation transaction, and so that creates and starts a competition. So they send that. That gives all the parameters of payout, how things are going to work. It provides an idea of what to expect as far as the data they start sending after that. So they send that transaction, and then they start sending data transactions. So after that are related and directly tied to that initial Oracle transaction. So they send data transactions, and those hold the data that people would be predicting, right? So if you have a timeline, so first they send an Oracle transaction, then they start sending data transactions after that as the data happens. So for instance, like in if you're trying to predict the Bitcoin to USD price, you would send first an Oracle transaction that said, this is what I'm doing, predicting, I'm going to be sending the actual price of USD to Bitcoin. And so every time that price changed, every time that the price changed, they would send a new transaction with the new price. And so that would happen however they wanted to do it. So they would send it out, and there would be a series of transactions with the price in it of Bitcoin. And so that's what the Oracle does. They send that data out. Then, obviously, right off the bat, people could start sending in prediction transactions. So predictors then send prediction transactions. So they send in a transaction that says, I believe that the third price down the line that the Oracle is going to send in is going to be this value, right? And so they send that in, and then they keep doing that, as long as they want to or whatever, and make predictions about the future of the data that the Oracle sends in, the data transaction. So they send that in, and then as soon as every time that the Oracle sends in a data transaction, the blockchain code takes it and looks back into the history of the blockchain and says, did anybody make any predictions about this particular data point or data tick is what we call them, data tick, right? Data. So it's in a series of ticks, like in a clock. So tick, 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 tick. So this particular data item, were there any predictions of that in the past? If there were, then it uses all the information from the original Oracle transaction, and it calculates the payout for those predictions based on how close they are or whatever. It's the prediction closeness calculation, so the PCC. And so that actually runs in the blockchain just like a smart contract would run on Ethereum. And so that happens every time that the Oracle sends in new data. So that's an overview, and that's pretty much it. That's all it does. So how that would work so now that's kind of an overview. So going back to the Singularity.net question, how that would integrate into Singularity is that that people would probably either one, like advertise this prediction, or they could go out and the predictors may go out and buy data from SingularityNet marketplace that they may need for their predictions to make them more accurate. So they first look at what the thing is, then they go out and check it, and then they can go out and buy data automatically. So if they have a software or something that can go out and search the data sources available on SingularityNet, then they can buy that data, and maybe even do it automatically using a token that they set up with the system. So the fact that it has a token means that that can be all be automated as far as payment goes, right? Really easily. So anyway, so that's one way. We also thought of another thing that's really important, where people may be able to sell their predictions. The predictions that they get from the system. So we have to. So I have to describe a little bit another part of the Neureal network, and that is that there's two. So the Oracle can do one of two things. Either they can provide the data unencrypted and public, which means that, for instance, like the BTC USD price, they're literally providing the price onto the network, right? The actual price of USD to Bitcoin. Everybody knows that that's what it is. The price matches the actual price on other places, other data places. So that the actual number of the price is in the blockchain. That's what they send for their daily transaction. Except for they may want to actually they may want to do it privately, which means that nobody really knows exactly what they're predicting the data is. So you put it out and it doesn't match the actual data, that like the actual price, but it's encrypted in a certain way that the Oracle provider that can actually, so when people predict and go into the predict the data stream, that the Oracle provider can actually see the right price prediction, but nobody else can. Okay, so that's possible. I know it sounds kind of crazy probably to most people. But the reason it's possible is because of a thing called homomorphic encryption. And that's just one way of doing this. Like that's one way of obfuscating. You can do all sorts of things to make the data private and still get the benefit of the prediction, like a correct prediction. And so this sounds kind of crazy, but it's all been proven out with Numer AI. So Numer AI, Numer AI, they actually have their system set up this way, and they get the results out. Where the people who do the data science, the people who do the predictions or whatever, they don't know what they're predicting. Like they don't actually know what it is they're predicting, but they still do it, and it still works. So anyway, so that sounds kind of crazy, but if you do that, right, then you get the answer to the prediction, and then you can actually go out and sell that prediction, right? So you could go on to SingularityNet, and you could put up that prediction and say, I will, I'm running on Neureal, and I've got all these predictors predicting it, and I've got this great prediction, and these guys said, these guys have bought it already, and they said it's great, so here's but you can buy it too. You just need to pay me some coin, and I'll release it to you. And so that was one of the original kind of things we had designed in our architecture. And so that's one of the other benefits that SingularityNet provides. So, but it requires that kind of private thing to be implemented in order for that to work. So yeah, Alex is saying, cool. So there will be any default obfuscation strategy, or it should be done by oracles. So it's definitely done by the oracle, but we, most of so in our system, the oracles will need to be programmers. Like they'll need to be, if they're not a programmer themselves, they need to hire programmers to be able to create what they need to actually create, to automatically create and send the data to the neural network. That being said, that's why we wanted to create a for-profit kind of B2B company. That would be their main focus, is to create those, to have that kind of middleware, create that middleware, and eventually, and in the meantime, at least be a service company to be able to create that those systems for people, those automated systems, one-off kind of thing for large businesses, so they could go out and get contracts to do that, some sort of thing like that. So Alex is asking, so if it's going to be a default one, yes. I mean, we hope to provide basic some tools so people can do that. We want to provide a way for people to do homomorphic encryption, and the way we'll do that is just by offering up example code. So basically, you'll come in to our GitHub and you'll be like, okay, here's an example Oracle system, right? And so it'll have obfuscation strategy. It'll have somebody just joined us here. I don't know who it is, but welcome. Sedona Takeout, I guess. So anyway, so you're saying it's a hello world. Yes, exactly. That's right. Yeah, I get what you're saying now. Welcome for joining us, though. So basically a hello world for the neural network platform. So we'll be providing that. We do want to do homomorphic encryption. That might be, hopefully that's in the release when we get that out. But that's kind of the plan. Plus, just so everybody knows, one of our advisors, Sam Smith, he came up with the strategy that I think maybe even better, like in some cases, than homomorphic encryption, as far as being able to access larger data sets and do like more collaborative data collecting. And so you may be able to gain insight from larger sources of data, kind of like what if you had a cloud and a cloud storage system, and you could upload all your data to that, but you would have like a repository that was more obfuscated and using some technology that the owner of that repository couldn't actually get access to the data or understand what it meant or anything like that. But the system could use it, could calculate on it. And then I'm also thinking of something else that's more AI related that may even trump that. And I talked about that on our regular live stream. I think, I don't know if it was last time or the time before, but I talked about that before. So that has to do with like using AI basically to obfuscate where you combine both the encryption and also the compute into one model. So you'd have one model that would basically the model would spit out a public key, and you can encrypt with that public key something, and anybody can encrypt. Like I can encrypt my data, you can encrypt your data. Neither one of us could see we could put that data up in the public. Neither one of us could see what the data is, but the private key would actually be in the model, but you couldn't find it in there anywhere. Like the model would be so complicated that it could act as if it had the private key that corresponded to the public key that it spit out, but it didn't actually. You couldn't actually find the actual key to be able to decrypt the data, and so it could then use that data that was encrypted, as if it had the private key. And so that's what I'm working on. I'm going to try to train a model to actually do that using like GAN technologies and stuff like that, general adversarial. So anyway, that's something down the road. But I'm really excited about it because it could be foundationally change a lot of the things in a lot of blockchains, like give people the ability to do a lot more stuff. So and I'll probably have maybe another like the next live stream that I do that's tech. I may talk about that and try to get Sam on there, and maybe me and him can talk about it. Sean, yeah, that's great. Don't Google it, Neureal it. Yeah, that's awesome. That's see it, the future. So anyway, as far as the program, as far as like using the system, there'll be that hello world for the oracles, but that'll be more technically involved. Let's see. So we talked about probably the two main ways that you would interact with Neureal on Neureal would interact with the Singularity Net. So just to go over those really quick, I think it would be Singularity Net would have their kind of API or their gateway. And what you would do is, as a predictor, you would write software or have software that would look at Neureal to see what oracles or what competitions are going on, and then you would go to Singularity Net and you would query what kind of data sources they have, and you may purchase some data sources that relate to that competition, and then you would get those and download those and then use those in your own AI to then do predictions and then make money, right? So that's one way. So you would then use that in your AI that you have locally, and then you would send the results back to Neureal and get paid from that competition, right? If you're with your predictive results. Yeah, that's right. So one other thing there, I guess you could do as well, is there may be AI services. And so somebody may set up some sort of a predictive AI service that all you do is some pass through, so you're just like, hey, these guys are doing this, this particular, they're predicting the weather in some city or something. And then, you would go to the Singularity Net and somebody would be predicting that weather or something. And then you just send it over to Neureal and try to get some money that way because nobody else thought of it or something. I don't know. Anyway, I guess that's probably possible because it is just a marketplace, and uh, yeah, yeah. Just your kind of value proposition is you're actually out there finding stuff on Singularity Net Marketplace. You're looking for things that are related, and you're like picking those out, and sending them back to Neureal. So that's cool too. Uh, the original idea that Jordan had. So Jordan, one of our founders, for the marketplace, what he was talking about was this hierarchy thing, where basically the idea is that you can be predicting the price of silver, and the price of silver that you predict wouldn't just be used for um, maybe trading silver, right? Like if you predict the price of silver, you could trade silver and make money, right? But you could also take that prediction of silver and you could sell it to somebody trying to predict gold. And so if somebody's over here trying to predict gold, they may benefit from you taking your computers and everything and trying to predict silver. And so, you paying for people to predict silver. And so you may take that your results and keep them private, and then you go and sell them to the gold people trying to predict gold. And so that was kind of Jordan's um, idea. So I don't know what Sean's saying value added TPR, but I'm not sure what TPR means. Oh, trending predictive results. Oh, yeah. So yeah, so hopefully we were hoping that basically with that system that you would get this global collective of knowledge and information, with everybody sharing their predictions about all these kinds of things, and you could kind of have a large kind of global brain in that sense, and I think Singularity Net is promoting that aspect of having that marketplace, that's devoted to kind of AI stuff. So hopefully that answers the questions. Um, I think I think that Alexander was asking some other things in here. So so everybody knows, we'll be making the actual. So we'll have our main net, which is our security backbone, which is which will basically hold any kind of transfer transactions, transferring coin between people. But it will also, for the oracles and the data streams and the actual competition, we're thinking of actually creating like a side chain or a lightning network or something that's like that. And so we're researching that, as far as different algorithms, different systems for that. But it will be on a side chain, in essence, some type of side chain that happens. And so you'll put the Oracle transaction on the main chain, and that'll start off this kind of side chain. And then the data transactions will happen on this side chain in the payout. So very similar to the Lightning Network, where you get that instant payout per tick, right? So you'll get these like pay kind of things going on. And then when that competition ends, then everything will go back to the main chain, and the money will actually get finalized at that point and sent. So that's the reason why we have the side chains. So as far as excuse me, so with the obfuscation strategy for the data, and you getting the value back from the system. So you get the results back, right? They're encrypted, so only you can read them. Yeah, AI is definitely already here. It's definitely here. There's some just amazing things out there that that kind of. I've been around since the well, not the very, very beginning, but I've been around since very, very early on, and it's obvious to me that we are in that time. It could get better, and it could be like us at some point, but I don't think that's the important part. The important part is we've got this amazingly powerful machine intelligence, and it's so powerful that sometimes it can overpower us in the things that we believe are our, that only we can do, right? And so that's always been the case every time that like this has happened in our since computers came out, or these compute machines came out. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we're all together in this. I mean, I hope in the end to be, be innovative, and I mean, and everything, be part of the machine, and have a machine side to me, so that we're both part of there. So anyway, that's my goal. But anyway, Alexander's asking a lot of good, really, really good questions here. So I was talking about the side chains. So they put the data on the side chains, so the way that you would then sell it on SingularityNet is you'd get your encrypted answer out of the system, out of the neural network, as far as just reading the transactions that happen from the predictors. So that's where the actual so as the predictors put in their predictions, that's the output, right? So you'd read the transactions on the blockchain just like you would go to a chain reader on the internet. So like what's the one for Ethereum? I forget what it is. Etherscan. So you go to etherscan.io and you can look at transactions that have happened on the Ethereum network there. Well, it's the same thing. So you would look at the transactions of the predictors, you would get your information out from those transactions, and then you would decrypt it. So you'd have to do this manually. Not manually, but you'd have to do this on your own machine. So you decrypt the data, then you could go out and sell it, to people. So you would, or it'd be encrypted, and then you'd sell them some sort of key or something. You'd have to work it out with Singularity how that process happened. But basically, you would get the information just like everybody else does from the results. So let me go into a little bit of detail about how that works. So you get how that actually part works. How do you get the predictions out of the Neureal network? And so the way that works is, like I said, with a block explorer or some sort of program that sits there and reads it and watches it. And what you do is so I was saying, remember I said earlier that the predictors put their predictions up onto the chain, right? And so if you're starting your Oracle here and you start putting data, over time, and somebody puts in a prediction for a data tick over here that's right here, but they put their prediction in here in the past, right? So then you get tick, 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 and then here's the actual one that comes out, right? Well, you already know the answer here. You don't care about this, right? That they get paid, but that doesn't matter as far as like trying to find the future, be able to see the future. So it's when it happens here that it's important. So everybody that puts predictions up, you want to be watching them all the time. And so over time, the idea is those predictions get better and better and more accurate, right? As people get better and better at predicting the data stream. And so over time, those predictions, here's the event, but you can read these predictions and say, okay, these predictions, are set in the blockchain. They're going to get paid when this happens, and they're trying to get the best prediction out, right? So you can read those and say, okay, I do a weighted average of those based on the who's putting the predictions up, right? So if you have X public key, right, that's putting this prediction stream up, right, a prediction stream of information, you can be like, okay, those guys are getting a better, more accurate. So I'm going to weight their stream higher, right? So anyway, so we will have a software included for that as well, like a Hello World. It's Hello World, but we're going to include that in the client, and so people will be able to see like the actual predictions pretty easily. So that's an intrinsic part, and we'll be adding that in there. And so Sedona is asking when we'll have, as far as we'll be online with a website, and it'll have predictions that that people can. You said list predictions needed selling. So we're not going to actually be doing that unless Singularity Net doesn't come through, right? So Singularity Net is going to be doing what you're asking there, I think. So we will we are going to have the Neureal network, and people will have to take the output like that they're getting, like I just said, and they'll have to put it for sale on Singularity Net themselves. And so as far as a list of predictions that need selling, that people are selling, I assume that's what you're asking, then those would be listed on Singularity Net, not on Neureal. So, but if you're asking about like things that need predicting, so like oracles that put, so the oracles, no, Singularity Net's not online. They may have something. Yeah, well, yeah. At the same time, we actually talked to them, and we're hoping that we can release it at the same time, so that we're like, they're there and we're there and we're integrated and we're working together, and then people can use us right away. So they're excited about that, and we would and we want to do that as well. So we hope to be working with them and watching what they do and as they do it and getting to know what they're doing. And we'll definitely try to make that an important part because, like I said, we originally designed it with that kind of a thing in mind. So, and that makes me remember. There's one other thing. How do you know as a predictor? So I'm a predictor and I want to go out and make some money with these competitions, right? So right now, like on Kaggle, so if you go to kaggle.com, Kaggle, you can see they have this list of different competitions going on, right? And so we will be doing that. So we'll have as far as like our predictor software, if you in our DPS, we'll actually have either a list of ones that are going on the Neureal network. So it's kind of like it's very similar to the it'll be similar to like the Block Explorer. And so you'll be able to see what oracles are out there, how much they're paying, how much it's for, and you'll be able to see any metadata that they include with it, which could include pictures or, like a picture or like description, any kind of data that might be needed. And then, well, for the DPS, people will be able to choose what they want. For the DPS, we may automate that and just make it kind of automated or random or something. We'll figure out how to do that exactly, and we may not list it in the DPS. But anyway, that's how that would kind of work. Okay, you're asking. So let me get this straight. Singularity Net will be posting predictions that are needed, such as if a hurricane will hit or the price of Bitcoin will go up, and they will sell those predictions to Neureal. No, so Singularity Net. Yeah, that wouldn't happen. So Singularity Net is a marketplace, right? So it's a place that anyone can put up stuff for sale to buy and sell. So that's what Singularity Net is. So think of like Amazon. No, that's not even like Amazon. Oh yeah, it is kind of like Amazon. So Amazon they don't sell the stuff themselves generally, right? They don't sell much stuff themselves. What they do is they have a marketplace where people can put up their stuff for sale. Like anybody can put that up for sale. And so, so on Singularity Net, you would see data sources for sale for people to use to predict the price of Bitcoin or to predict if there's a hurricane. So you could go buy that stuff from there to help you to predict better. The other side is anybody using the Neureal system and paying, basically making competitions and paying people to predict something like the price of Bitcoin. They'll get those predictions out from Neureal and they'll go take them over to Singularity Net and list them on Singularity Net. So they'll list them and say, I have the prediction of the price of Bitcoin if you want to buy it from me, right? And that'll list on Singularity Net. Now, I don't know for sure whether we would put our competitions up on SingularityNet? We may, but the problem with that is that people will be required to put their predictions in our Neureal standard format. And so that may be something we do, but I'm not sure about that yet. Whether people would like put up things they wanted predicted. Like, do I want the prediction of the price of Bitcoin? I want the prediction. I have this much money to predict it. Here, whoever can predict it best, here's the money. So that's basically what Neureal is, right? And decentralizes that whole type of system. So I don't know. I just don't know if we would put those prediction things up. I think we need our own list of that. So what you would see on the list is things that you could predict as a predictor. And so you could, as a data scientist, go in and offer predictions and get prizes, just like on Kaggle. Yeah, Alexander's saying, as a result of this, we'll be part of this artificial global intelligence. Yeah. And so as a whole, this whole system with the marketplace and the Neureal and maybe other people doing other stuff, over here, maybe providing hardware, which is something that Golem. So Golem provides like compute hardware, right? So that you can use, so like kind of like Amazon S3. So that those would be on Singularity. JD is asking, are there any other AI projects you're looking at that could be using or used by Neureal? And also, what are thoughts about Ocean? Yes, Ocean. Yeah, so Ocean's really cool. So they would work with SingularityNet on the marketplace. So they would offer up, and that's why they partnered with them and talked to them. Ocean would offer up data storage, so like data sources and data storage, and so it would be a great way to be able to access data for your AI, and you can pay for that capability through the SingularityNet. Now, anybody that's using Neureal would definitely, benefit from that, because then they could go out, they could use. That's what I'm talking about buying data. They may buy it that way through Ocean Protocol, right? And so, so on SingularityNet, you would go probably. What would happen is you're a predictor. So you'd run a predictor, and you're trying to predict the price of Bitcoin. So you as a predictor, trying to win the prize, right? And get the prize and get the future price. Not only do you benefit from winning the prize if you do well, but you also get access to the price of Bitcoin, which is good too. But anyway, so that would be never mind about that. But anyway, so if you let's say, so if you we were talking about Ocean Protocol and getting the data, right? So what would happen is you would be like, okay, I need to predict the price of Bitcoin. That's what I want to do. So my software would go query SingularityNet and say, what are the data sources available on the Ocean Protocol out there? And then it would get a list from that API, and then it would go through the metadata and pick out which of those is important for the price of Bitcoin. So it may pick out, something like the price of the price of Bitcoin, like the price of Ether. The price of Ether may affect the price of Bitcoin, or the price of gold may be correlated, right? So they may need the price of gold. Maybe there's a Twitter feed, right, of data coming through the Ocean Protocol. But the Ocean Protocol makes it easier to access, and you can do like fine-tuned data. So you don't have to maybe get like a huge file download. Like you could kind of pick what it is that you want. So Singularity kind of makes that connection happen, and then the predictor would then connect to the Ocean Protocol with his predictor, and you could do it all automated. That's the main goal. That's the main point of all this stuff. Like you could do it manually, but when you're talking about live data streams, they're ongoing all the time. You don't want to sit there 24/7 trying to do this stuff. Batches don't work, because by the time you get some data, like 2 days down the road, you do a batch for 2 days, it doesn't work because it's already 2 days is gone, and you're not predicting you lost all those predictions in the middle, right? So, yeah, so SingularityNet is kind of the coordinator between Ocean and Neureal. Yes, a coordinator for like a marketplace for a price and buying and selling. So basically, you could buy access to this storage just like you do on Amazon right now. So if you want to, pay for compute on Amazon, you got to go in and you got to put your credit card, and they'll charge you for your usage, and that is kind of what SingularityNet is doing. It's figuring out the price, and you're actually paying through SingularityNet. It's a marketplace. You're calculating the price. Maybe even Amazon has like a market, because you can do this thing where you buy based on the current market. Like you say, I want to pay this much, and as long as there's nobody else in the way, then you'll get it at that price, right? So yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So SingularityNet is kind of the coordinator of that, of that price buying and buying and selling. Yeah, so there's Ocean, and then anybody that provides data. I mean, people can still use Amazon and whatnot for their data sources, and there's even on Microsoft Cloud, on Google Cloud, there's AI integrated stuff in there, and people can use that if they want to. We just believe that the decentralized versions of those things, like storage, and the Ocean Protocol, and some of the other projects out there that may provide other things, maybe some of them provide models, like actual models. Like I know in Keras you can get models that have been trained already for something, trained for image recognition, trained for this, trained for that, and you may be able to get those as well. That's another thing. I don't know. I think there's some AI projects out there doing that, like they're actually training models, and then maybe they would put their models up on SingularityNet, just like we would put our predictions up there. From Neureal. Neureal would people from Neureal would put predictions up on Singularity. From these other AI blockchain projects, they would put their models up on Singularity to sell, right? So, so that's that part. Let's see. So, I didn't really talk about the DPS. I mean, I did a little bit, but just to be very clear about that. So the DPS is our open source, like the Neureal open source version of a predictor that people can download, and that we're going to create so that people can download it and use it. Its corresponding thing in normal crypto it's the mining software. So like you can download a node, right, for crypto. So you can download a node and run a node for like Bitcoin, right? So you can download Bitcoin and you can run a node, but then there's this other software you download to do actual mining. And so you would download this other software, and you would get your hardware that does your mining. You buy your ASICs or whatever, and you run this other software that is not a node software that does the actual mining. And so the DPS relates to that. And so anybody, the system's completely agnostic. Anybody can put in predictions into the system in any way they want. They can push a key button on the keyboard, but they'll be slower than the AI, right? Doing that. So they could sit there and type in the price if they want, manually. But they're going to be slower than the AI generally. But not everybody's a data scientist. So if you want to get in and you want to compete, so we are coming up with kind of like a general purpose prediction engine that can coordinate between people. You can choose like who you want to coordinate with. If you have some buddies and you want to get kind of in a pool and quote mine. I'm doing quotes around everything because it's not the same as, even though we're calling it this, it's only if you're into crypto and you've done this before. Like if you've been a cryptocurrency miner before, you'll understand it from this point of view. But if you haven't, it's kind of like crazy words anyway. So the idea is that if you just take Neureal by itself without the DPS, you're going to have to be a data scientist or somebody, or at least a programmer. Like probably a data scientist programmer together are going to be like the first adopters of this, right? So without the DPS, then you really can't. It's going to be really technically hard. There's not going to be anything out there for you to participate in a competition, right? But so what we're writing is this DPS, which is our open source version of kind of a general purpose prediction engine that anybody can run on their computer. So they just download it. It'll utilize their GPUs in the computer, and it will be able to contribute to predictions, and so that people can make money with this DPS software, even if they aren't a data scientist, right? And normally wouldn't be able to compete. And so that's what we're doing with that. So when we talk about the DPS, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so yeah, so let me go on to some of these other questions here, because we've spent a lot on this singularity one, and it's really interesting, but we've covered a lot of base, so I think we can answer these other ones pretty clearly without going into detail about the architecture. But let me see what you're saying here. I missed the beginning of the stream. Did you talk about any news on the roadmap, ICO, TGE, etc.? No, I was going to try to keep this to be tech oriented, like dev oriented. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Kyler, if he's going to be able to come in and do the live streams, the regular ones. But if not, then I do have a really, really big announcement to make, and so I can tell everybody here, but I will announce it on the channel as well. And so that is that we do have the Neureal Foundation now. It's been formed, and that was kind of one of our holdbacks. And so we do actually have a foundation, a real life foundation in the Nevis Islands. So since it's a worldwide project, we're basing there. And so that that nonprofit foundation will be it'll be the one that's doing the ICO, and hopefully, and we're getting really, really, really close to that. So that was one of the big stepping stones in that, and so we're really excited that we finally have it. We've been trying to get it for a long time, and we're really excited. And with that, I think we can really make this go fast and speed forward, and be able to get the ICO started really soon. So that's what I'm gonna. I'll talk about it here, but I'm going to make an official announcement on the Neureal channel. So if you're on that, keep a watch on there, and then hopefully Kyler can come in and talk some more about it. When he gets going again. So if that's what he can do, if that's his potential, if he can join us again, that's what hopefully he will do. So anyway. So now that I've gone kind of over the general architecture, I think these other questions should be pretty easy to answer that are from Alexander. So will predictions be estimated by already known data? Yeah, so that's in general how. So anybody can predict it any way they want, right? That's one of the important things about Neureal, is that it at its core, that's what it is. Anybody can predict any way they want. So like I said, they could do it with, by punching numbers on the keyboard if they want. But it's built to be running all the time, so it'll be hard to compete as a human without writing software. and without writing algorithms. And so, um, and so the way you do that, the way generally out there in the world, but we are providing this DPS, which is unique too, I think, which people will be able to run. Yeah, by random. Yeah. Yeah, the monkey on the keyboard, right? Just get a couple monkeys and have them sit there, hit the keys. You never know; they might do pretty good. So anyway, so the way generally the best way out there, I think, to do predictions is obviously to look at the past history. I mean, we as human beings, we predict the future. That's what we do. That's what our brains are built for, predicting the future. And so we understand that pretty well. We experience life. We learn about life. We build up models of what we think the future of the world, what we experience around us is going to do, right? And so that's who we are, and we all get that, I think. And so that's kind of what that question is asking. Yeah, so you won't be. A lot of people too really think that Neureal is going to be used for predicting like events. So like for instance, Brazil versus France, who's gonna win the cup? Like that's an event. So that happens. That's like a one data point, in a long, lots of games or whatever, right? So like you have all these games, and then you have this one data point at the very end, and it only happens. I don't know how often it happens. Once a year. So this one data point once a year. So Neureal is going to be very bad at that. Like it's going to be very bad. Like AI is not going to be as good at that as we are. So human beings would probably do better. And Augur. So Augur. I don't know if everybody's familiar with Augur, but they were like the first. Like they were their prediction as well. The thing about them is they're human-based predictions. So they focus on events like that. They're like, okay, here's going to be, who's going to win this horse race, right? Who's going to be the next president? Who's going to, these are events. And so people are better at that than machines. And Neureal isn't really built for that because, I mean, you could do that, and it could be used for that, but it's not. I don't think it's as good as these prediction marketplaces that Augur is and whatnot. And I don't think we really want to compete with that particularly. And so, really, the answer to Alexander's question, which was he was saying, will predictions be estimated by already known data? But the example that he talks about is predicting an event, right? So the thing. And a lot of people tend to do that because that's what we as humans think. We think, we think about these events and we predict these events because we're kind of slow, right? Like relatively to computers. So computers can go, and we were like, how many times can we do that? How many keys can we press, in 1 minute, so, Neureal is built for data streams. So what that means is that any data that is constantly streaming, and there's multiple events. Like these are events happening every second, every minute, every 10 minutes at the most, right? Or every day. You could be every day, but it's not going to do really well because people need time to learn and they need the data. And so, it's going to be that top level of like streaming live data. That's where it's going to go. Predicting the price of Bitcoin. That's a big one. Predicting where hurricanes are going to go. Right? And it's not an event of a hurricane. It's not predicting. That's the other thing. It's not predicting this event. Like, oh, this hurricane is going to happen in Florida on June or July the 30th. That's not what it's predicting, right? So it's predicting the actual weather patterns, like minute by minute, right? So it's like, oh, here's the pattern of the weather today. I'm going to predict what it is in 10 minutes. I'm going to predict what it is tomorrow. right? But not like at a particular time tomorrow, not like what it's going to generally be tomorrow, but at a particular time. I'm going to predict it at 3 o'clock tomorrow, or I'm going to predict it at 4 p.m. on a week from now, but I'm going to keep predicting it 4 p.m., 401, 402, 403, 404, 405. So I'm going to have this picture of the future. So Neureal is about creating a picture of the future, not like an event, not a story of the future, but it's a picture, it's a movie of the future, right? So that's what Neureal is for. It's predicting that movie so you can actually see into the future. We talk about the stock price. So, the Bitcoin price. So the Bitcoin price goes like this. You can see the graph, it's a curve. It goes, right? It's like a curve. Here's the current time. Here's the past history of the curve. Here's the past of the curve. Here's the current time and time. Neureal gives you the curve into the future. So it shows you the curve, the whole curve into the future. So you're actually seeing into the future. Right? So that's what it is. So using an example like the World Cup Championship is not a very good thing for Neureal to do. The data points are too wide, like far apart from each other. And that's why it's kind of hard to do that. Okay, so you're saying that a usual PC, even with several GPUs, so this is Oleg here, he's saying that even the regular PC with several GPUs doesn't have resources for forecast. Yeah, so Neureal should deal with big data somehow, right? So he's saying that, like, if I just use my computer right here that this is running on, and it's pretty beefy. I've got two 1080 1080 Ti's in there, and I've got a really nice CPU. So it's pretty beefy, and it can do a lot of good AI stuff, right? But predicting the future, like the future price of Bitcoin, is very, very, very difficult, and there's no way that this guy is going to do much for that, right, all by himself. And so in order to tackle those kind of problems, like that are really, really hard, that you need a lot of data and you need a lot of compute. And so how we're doing that is with the DPS. So the DPS is the key to that. So other people can try to do their own systems, and maybe there's people with a lot of stuff out there. There's like, I know a guy with $500,000 worth of GPUs. It's not just a PC like at my home, right? So he's got a lot of power, and he might be able to compete against, the DPS or whatever, or some other person. He would definitely be able to compete against me. So I would be like a drop in the bucket, right? So with the DPS though, but this doesn't preclude other people getting into other systems. Like I could have this crappy GPU, but I might get some software, download some software. It doesn't have to be the DPS. It could be some other software that somebody else wrote that does this similar type of thing in the way they want to do it, not the way the DPS does it, right? The default prediction strategy, right? Not ours for Neureal. It could be somebody else doing their own. So they would like download those other people's software, and then that would coordinate, them and whoever else downloaded it, their computers together to do their predictions, right? To compete. So with the DPS, to answer the question that Oleg's asking here, is that we are writing the DPS to be a distributed compute system that can utilize all the data sources out there, the big data that's out there. And so the question then is what if there's data that's private or you can't get access to? So because it's an open system, excuse me, and because everyone gets the benefit out of it, right? And we have this obfuscation strategies, and it's a centralized kind of, I mean, not centralized, but it's a standard. So Neureal offers a standard, like like HTTP or TCP, a standard protocol. Oh, Shadow, hey, how are you? It's been forever. Oh my gosh, welcome. Thanks for coming. So, uh, anyway, so I was just talking about the DPS and how it has the potential to solve to be able to do these kinds of really hard predictions, like the um, uh, the weather patterns or the price of Bitcoin. So those are very difficult, very hard things that you can't do with just one computer. Like I couldn't write up some software, and I mean I wouldn't be able to compete very well. So basically, with the DPS, you can pick a particular thing you want to compete, and it offers the tools, like the data science tools in essence, like, but it's really just the high end algorithms. So and we need to have another one of these about that architecture of the DPS. So I want to go into that in depth with everyone so that they get like why that I think that's going to work on a distributed sense and be able to use people's GPUs for all these different like crowd computing basically, to be able to utilize all of the GPUs that people contribute towards a particular purpose, so that you can actually get the precision enough in there that you can beat what's going on already out there. Places like NOAA that does like hurricane prediction, you could beat them. And the biggest one's going to be the other traders and the other trading bots and other systems that are out there trading Bitcoin, automatically. I mean, this is going to compete against those, and it's all about accuracy. And so to get that accuracy, we're hoping that the DPS system can outperform, because it's able to have access to more data in a more distributed way, and a larger. So instead of going up, kind of like with if you go in and buy a DGX2 from NVIDIA, it's a big box with 16 V100s in it, chips, and so you get them with a really like super fast bandwidth between them. So you get this really powerful, machine you can put in a rack mount, and you can buy a whole bunch of those and spend millions and millions of dollars, buy a bunch of those, right? Like, I mean, not just millions, or maybe even $1 billion you could spend pretty easily, and get a bunch of those, right? And you could do that, but you're limited to the amount of money you have, right? And with the DPS and the decentralized system, and people working together and getting an incentive, kind of like a mining pool. If you're into mining, if you're into crypto mining, it's similar to what a mining pool would be. You can benefit, and you can get that. You can go wide instead of tall, basically. You can just out compete them because you've got like 1,000 times more compute available. Everybody that's involved, like my computers, this guy's, everybody's so many computers that there's enough, and so much data as well, and access to that data, and the decentralization of the data sources, right? So anyway, so I'll do another podcast when I'll go through that particular DPS architecture, and you can take a look at. I know Oleg, you'll be interested in that for sure, and I'd love to go over that too for people, because I think it's it's kind of the basis and the do or die part of what we're doing, So I'll be excited to kind of talk about that again, because it's a fun part. But anyway, let me kind of move on with the questions here. So we have the other one, but yeah. So on number 3, Alexander is asking. I believe he's asking. Basically, it's kind of what I said before. Neureal isn't it's agnostic to the to what is used to do the predictions. So that means that the neural network doesn't care how you do the predictions. It only cares, about the accuracy of those predictions. And it doesn't, and like he says, it doesn't change the data. So the neural network is actually, because it's on the blockchain, it's set in stone. It's a authentication of the data, and so it's like the Oracle puts out the live actual data that's out in the real world, like the price of Bitcoin. So it'll put out that price, and that'll be hard written into the blockchain, and then the predictors come in, and for the future prices, those future prices, they put in their hard written data for what they think the prediction is going to be in the future, and it's immutable, it's unchangeable, because that's the point, right? You can't change it. Once we get to the future, then you can look back and you can say, well, that guy really did predict the right price, and so we need to pay him out, right? We need to give him money. And so it because it's immutable and it's unchangeable, then that's the benefit you get from the Neureal project. And so as far as other things okay, so this is a really fun, interesting thing. So we talked about me as an oracle, hiding my data, obfuscating my data, getting a future prediction, and then going out, because nobody else can see it but me. I then can go sell it on SingularityNet, right? We talked about that. But then there's also this whole other side of people wanting to do to be public predictions, right? So if I'm out there and I'm predicting the price of Bitcoin and it's public, right? Then I, as an oracle, even though I'm paying for I'm paying for the prizes, right? I may not have to pay that much, because people might be like, well, I want to see the price of Bitcoin too. And so I'm a predictor. And so I will just predict this one, even though there's not a big prize, because I can trust the provider of the data. So the person who's providing the data is trustworthy enough. The oracle is trustworthy enough that they don't have to provide very much money, or even any money, right? They may be able to get away with doing it without any money. And then people just come in, and predictors just predict for free because they want to know the price, for the future, and everybody just collaborates, right? And so that's one thing that you can do. And so if you do that, then the value can be used automatically, because it's public on the blockchain and it's not changed. Everybody can come in and read that data automatically with the automated systems. And you can read that data and then analyze it and use it for something else. So you could grab these predictions as they're happening, and you could be like, okay, I'm going to use this for something else. And so you can actually, all of the different, an ecosystem could form where you have all of these open data, open source, kind of like open source predictions going on that are all free, and everybody's just putting their compute, and then these guys are predicting this, but then that's helping these other guys predict this other thing, and then there's this whole data thing that everybody's looking at, and like the data's everywhere, and anyway, so hopefully that forms as well, and that's kind of like the open source data side to it, and so that kind of fits into your question there, I think, because the owner may not obfuscate it, and so then that opens up a whole new realm of possibilities of things that could happen on the Neural network blockchain, by everybody reading each other's predictions and data and everything. And as a predictor, if that's the case, you definitely want to read other people's predictions. So if I'm a predictor, I want to go in and read somebody else's predictions, everybody else's predictions, and then make my new prediction that I'm going to make for the next, time. And so that should be across the board. Everybody should be wanting to do that, because it gives everybody an upper hand, and then everybody working on it can all bubble up. Everybody can get better. So I think that was number 3. So anyway, so number 4 of question that Alexander had was, it's the same question. And so Alexander's asking if is that who decides the prediction accuracy, right? So hopefully from our current conversation, or I mean our previous what I was just talking about, hopefully I described it enough so that people understand that everybody that looks at the blockchain can get the prediction accuracy. So we don't actually use the prediction accuracy to do the payout. Like if you like, and what that means is if you're not into data science, you don't have to worry about this. But data scientists currently, what they do is they have a model, and that model it has a particular accuracy rating. Like the model can be measured to see how accurate it is, like with a percentage. So it could be like if it's AOC, area under the curve, it could be like 94%, right? Accurate. So that's its accuracy rating for this model. So that currently data scientists, that's what they do, right? So we in Neureal, we don't use that at all. Like that's not used at all. We don't calculate an accuracy rating for a particular model. Like we don't do that. We just pay out based on the actual prediction accuracy because we have a record of it. Like we don't have to measure the models that people use. We don't care. We see the prediction they put in, and that's the accuracy. So we're paying out based on the empirical accuracy internally without having to look at the model at all, right? I mean, it ends up being the same thing, but you don't do it in batch. You don't have to calculate it, right? It's part of the prediction closeness calculation, right? But you don't have to calculate it until you get the real data. So it's like having the test data. It's like if you're training the model, and and then you try to get your AOC, right? You would have to give it like data it didn't know, and that's how you'd calculate it, right? Well, this is always doing that. So it's continuously, when you have a live data stream, you're continuously doing the AOC every time you get new information that is the real live information, right? So Oleg's asking, so as a miner, I can create not only neural network model, I can just use some statistic or some of their expert systems. Sounds really cool because not only data scientists could be miners. Yes. Yeah. And that's a big deal because I don't know of any other projects that are really doing that are making it agnostic like that. And that when I say agnostic, that's what I mean. I mean, when I say agnostic, I mean that it doesn't matter what you're predicting with. So I think that answers number 4. Let me see. So definitely, we talked about before, we definitely are going to use obfuscation, and so there's all those different levels that we talked about, that I talked about earlier. I don't know if everybody was here, but there's different levels of obfuscation that we'll be researching and looking into. It's a huge part of the project, and the data privacy stuff. So we'll be definitely looking at that, or doing that. But it is, at the end of the day, the responsibility of the submitter. We're just going to be providing software tools that they can use, that we can say, okay, this works with our system. It provides the obfuscation. It's open source, so you can modify it if you would like, right? So that's what we're doing with that. So yeah, it doesn't. So he's asking me how will the system do accuracy, right? Well, if it's obfuscated data, as long as like the data is the same, then it's correct, right? So it doesn't matter, and that's how it does it. So for instance, if you had the Bitcoin price, like let's say it was a Bitcoin price, but nobody knew it was a Bitcoin price, and you're sending obfuscated data of the Bitcoin price, but nobody else knows it's the Bitcoin price, right? So you send out like the real Bitcoin price is $6,000, right? But you send out $1,000, right? Okay. for a particular data point. So you send out $1,000. Well, the Bitcoin price is 6,000, but your competition will only pay people if they predict $1,000, not 6,000, right? So if in the past, that was the past. So here's the current time that you put in. The Bitcoin price is 600, but your obfuscation algorithm changes it to 1,000, right? Now you can, with your deobfuscation algorithm, it'll convert that 1,000 back to 6,000, right? So it encrypts it to 1,000, but it will decrypt it back to 6,000. So the real price is 6,000, but you put in 1,000. So let's say in the past that somebody put in a prediction of 6,000, right? Well, it came here for this particular time period, or for this particular data point, right? So it comes to this point, and it's like, well, 6,000, not close at all to 1,000. So it wouldn't actually pay them if they predicted 6,000 here, right? They would have to actually predict 1,000, the number 1,000. And if they got close to that, then they would get paid. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the thing there. That's why you don't have to calculate the estimate. You don't have to estimate it like you would do normal with a model and all that. A lot of people don't do this. A lot of other projects don't. They do it by model, and most competitions, even Kaggle, works with the model. And I think Neureal AI actually works with the model as well. So in Neureal AI, you get paid, I think, based on when you give up your model. So you actually give up your model to Neureal AI, your neural network model or whatever, I think. But maybe Oleg can correct me on that. I haven't actually used it enough, and that was one of our bounties that we were going to have people jump in there and try it out. So I don't know, Oleg, maybe you have the answer to that. Maybe you've tried Neureal AI enough to know if you submit a model or if you submit the actual predictions as they go. Anyway, so that answers number 4, I think. Alexander said data owners should obfuscate data, and that is correct. They will. We'll just provide those algorithms, but the blockchain it won't do it. I mean, the blockchain, that's not what the blockchain won't do that, and people won't run that and check that or anything like that. They just purely, I mean, the people running the neural network, the miners or whatever, the traditional crypto miners, not the predictions people, not the predictors, but the actual crypto miners will not be checking that, whether people have obfuscated or not. So it is the responsibility of the data, of the data owner, the Oracle provider, the data provider. So yeah, it's okay, Alexander. That's awesome. I'm glad you're in here. You're making this awesome. I wish you could actually join us on this with the video and everything. We could talk, back and forth. So next time I'll make sure it's working like that, so you guys can jump in if you'd like. That would be awesome. I love it. Okay, so he has the number 6. Will Neureal work as a low-level decentralized AI prediction engine? Will Neureal be used by developers only? Yeah, in general, the neural network is going to be very dependent upon developers to write code and interact with it. That being said, we as the foundation are going to try to make it accessible. Parts of it are going to be very difficult to make it accessible to just average people to use. We'll definitely have a usable wallet. That'll be 100%, easy, as good as any other project out there. We'll make sure that we have a good wallet so they can hold the token and trade it and everything. I mean, the internal, the neurons. So we'll definitely have that. But, things like doing the Oracle transaction and putting up a competition will be kind of the really far down the line before you can do that easily as a non-programmer or data scientist or whatever. down the road doing that. Things like some of the examples of that I would say are like this idea of personalized health prediction. So it's the idea that it's the thing. One of the part that I really like the best, actually, I always say that it's very personal for me. I want to get a bunch of sensor things like a Fitbit, and maybe I don't want to know about a headband, but probably just a Fitbit kind of device, and my phone as well, so that like it'll track my phone will track the my movements during the day and stuff like that, and have a lot of data. And I want to create a system that I can use within a Neureal network that will automatically put my data up for prediction on the Neureal network, and be able to analyze those predictions, and of course be private, because I don't want my heart rate to be public on the blockchain. So I don't know, maybe I would, but I don't know. It's anyway, I probably don't. I don't know. I haven't really thought that through, but anyway, but the idea is that most people don't, right? So you would put your private data up, and it'd be encrypted, and it would automatically set up an oracle, right, for that. And the software would automatically set up an oracle with your health data, and then people would predict that. And then you would have another piece of the same software that would run on your phone, basically, and it would analyze the predictions and decrypt them for you, and it would look for patterns that look like you might be having a heart attack or something, or some other disease, life-threatening disease or something like that. So a stroke or whatever. So, and be able to warn you when those things happen. So it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like a personal doctor, right? That's always watching you, and going to tell you, get to the hospital, or you're going to die tomorrow or something. So anyway, so that is an example of how we might, how something might be created that isn't that the end just anybody can use and still use Neureal, but it has to be like that. So it has to be like a company, like they wouldn't just be able to use it like in its pure form, right? Generally, but people would kind of think of it that way, maybe. So okay, so down to some more questions here. Yeah, so that's the same kind of thing. I think Alexander's kind of getting it there. So, people can create applications that utilize the service that Neureal provides as a decentralized competition prediction marketplace. I mean, not marketplace, competition network. That's the best word. So decentralized competition network, data stream prediction competition network. There you go. Anyway, okay. So number 7, he's saying the 3 main components are the core blockchain, the DPS, and the Singularity Marketplace. Those are the 3 things. And if you look in our white paper and read it, you're going to see kind of those 3 things in there. So there's the core blockchain, which is what I call the Neureal network. So that's the that's the actual cryptocurrency, right, with the neurons and everything. The cryptocurrency blockchain part. It's the part that that you can trade coins, you can submit the Oracle transaction to it, and you can submit data transactions, and you can submit predictions, and you get paid in the token during that system. So that's the core blockchain. And then you have the DPS, which is the open source kind of like non-data scientist way to collaborate on competing in those predictions. So it's kind of like what would be the miner, but it's for the predictors. So the predictors get their software. They can join like a club or something that you get together and do it, or you can predict on a particular, you can pick a particular thing you want to predict. So you'd pick like I want to predict the price of Bitcoin. So that could be something you predict using the DPS software. And you could download the software. If you have a couple of GPUs or a good computer, you can, and then you can say, I want to help predict this thing. So that's that. That was so number 8. Okay, so this is more about our kind of development roadmap he's talking about. Okay, so the idea is after we do the token generation, the public one, not just the pre-sale. So we're doing the pre-sale, and that could extend for a couple months, or months. That could extend for months. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out. It depends on how much money we raise, how fast. We've got a cap of 4.9 million, but we'll probably start the public sale even if we get only like 2 million or maybe even 1 million. I don't know. Anyway, hopefully it'll be soon, but it's a variation. We don't know. But as soon as then we'll do the public sale, and that could be a month or 2 months. But that's going to be a set time. So that'll be set in time. And then after that, once we get our money, then we're going to start we'll have the deadlines, and we'll be starting the development roadmap. And so if you look at the roadmap, that's when all those things happen. So what they mean is, if going into more detail, is going into more detail about how that's going to work is that we're going to have those milestones that we have to do, right, for the milestones. So we have the MUV or whatever it's called for the first one, and then we have the MVP 1 and MVP 2, and then we have the release, right, of the network. And so those are particular milestones, and what the end goal of each one of those is the kind of release. We have to release something, right? So the first one is basically the test net. So it's the minimum usable test net. So the first one is the test net. And we'll be able to the minimum usable test net. So it'll actually have a lot of problems. It won't be people can follow us with all of the we'll be doing everything open source. So everything we're going to do is going to be open source, so anybody can take it or whatever. But we'll be at that point we'll have like a basically a beginning test net that people can start trying stuff out with, finding bugs, creating things. But you'll be able to do all the things I talked about through this whole thing. You'll be able to do the basic stuff. Like you'll be able to send a transaction. We already kind of can do that with the current software we have. We can do that stuff in there. There's each part of what I talked about with the architecture is actually implemented in the current prototype. So you can go there and look at the code and kind of see how that's going to play out. So if you look at the new coin code, which I think you have, Oleg, or somebody did, I can't remember who it was. Somebody looked at it and did some like Qt updates or something, and I think that was you, Oleg, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so that code will be doing in a different. Anyway, so the test net will be basically the current prototype, but upgraded with a bunch of stuff and more solid than it is now, right? You'll be able to actually do more stuff with it than it is now. We'll take it to like another level and release that and say, hey, we have a fairly good working test net that you can actually use to start finding bugs and trying some stuff out. So that's what we're hoping for that. Then we're going to start working on the DPS, which is going to be the for the first MVP one, which is the trader bot. So we're actually going to have set up a trading bot that will predict, use Neureal to predict just like I talked about. It'll use the test net, and it'll send out the data for the price or whatever we have it predict, and then it'll get that back, and then it'll use those predictions to try to come up with a strategy for trading. And so that's our first MVP. And so we'll try to get that working with the test net. That'll all be non-real Neureal token or whatever. It won't be official token like from the sale or anything. But hopefully people will have some GPUs. We definitely going to provide GPUs. We'll try to get as many people running GPUs to do the trading bot. So that'll be the next MVP 1, and then MVP 2 will be the hurricane prediction, and we hope, depending on how much money we have, to do like a hardware thing with that, where we provide free devices to some people, or giveaway devices or something like that, where there are these weather sensing devices that people can just throw on the top of their house or whatever, connect to a network if they have them one around. And they can start feeding that data into Singularity Net or whatever is available. Not Singularity Net probably, but we'll take the data in with the DPS or something, and then predict that. So we'll try to use not just that data, but data it's all out there, and we'll try to do a really good effort at trying to predict the weather, and then try to detect when there's going to be and by using that, detect when hurricane pass form, and where their future trajectory is, and be able to see how they're going to flow and stuff like that. So anyway, that's our goal. And then our last one is the release of the actual neural network, and we hope that's after all the testnet-y stuff. All this is testnet up until that point, and then we release it with the Genesis block with all the owners of Neureal. At that point, the Neureal token from the ERC20 token from the sale, and everything else, all the NECP and this new pre-sale token as well. There's going to be another token. So anyway, that's the plan for that. So that's question number 8. And then question number 9, oracles. Who will estimate prediction accuracy? So hopefully I described that well enough. If you guys have any questions about that still, let me know. Like if you still don't quite understand that, let me hopefully understand the answer to that. Type something up if there's still some questions about that. Let me know. Anyway, you can always ask questions in the dev chat or in the Neureal too, of course. So I think I don't know how many people are still hanging around, but I'm still going. I usually stay up pretty late, but it looks like Alexander has some general, just Neureal or not Neureal, but neural network questions like NNs, deep learning models. How do these crazy neural networks work? And why are they? What's the deal with them? What's going on, and how maybe they integrate into Neureal. So, and what we might do. These maybe are questions about the DPS too, and how that may work and everything. So let me just go through those. So, what's the DPS and how usual developer user can get started? So, we're really going to make the DPS to be easy to use as possible. You download the software, you run it. There'll be some GUI stuff. You pick what you want to go out, use your stuff on, and it tries to figure out the rest. Now, that being said, it's going to be some manual stuff in the beginning, and it may not be perfect, and it's going to be an ongoing, growing project, here till whenever, so it's going to continue on past the Neureal network release, and it's going to be the foundation, the Neureal foundation. It's going to be their kind of main goal focus, other than the main Neureal network. Or somebody else. I plan to do that, but maybe we'll get somebody else working on it or something. But anyway, it's an important part of it, so that'll continue on. So it's not really for developers particularly. The DPS will be mainly for just people who have GPU hardware and want to use and want to mine, in essence, like by being predictors rather than just general crypto mining. They want to make some money offering up their GPUs for doing the data science, for doing the predictions. So it's really not developer focused, the DPS. Now, that being said, the way we create it and the software that we use and everything that we set up with it, so the use of it's not really developers, but the actual setup and everything is definitely going to be, we're going to have to create it. Like we're creating a product, right? I mean, it's a product. So, so it's going to be a data science product. It's going to have algorithms in there that run on a GPU and do deep learning, like deep neural network learning. Be RNNs with attention networks and all sorts of stuff, whatever we end up doing, right? But I've got an architecture for it, and and I'll be creating that part. So that's where developers can kind of get involved in creating it, that software. So who will decide which data is for the neural network to train and which for prediction? So as far as the training, so if you have a neural network and you want to train it normally with data science, you do like this batch stuff. You get this data that's already out there that people have already gathered. It's not really usually time based. So like a bunch of pictures of cats or a bunch of pictures of flowers or something. And so you gather all this data, and then you run the neural network on it, and then you make predictions, right? Well, with streaming data, really you can do historical streaming data. So if you come in and you start predicting, and there's a bunch of previous data on the blockchain, you're going to want to read all that data and get it for sure. So this is the kind of things we're going to put into the DPS. So the DPS will have these kind of things in place. So if when we're creating the DPS, it'll be looking back at the data that's on the blockchain. It'll be analyzing. It'll be doing this batch stuff with that. Also, we're going to add in a whole bunch of like public data sources. So it'll just we'll probably just have it randomly pick the public data sources, and so to use, or something like that. Maybe as much as you can gather. So to go through this, as when you download the DPS and run it, it'll probably go through this whole process and lots of training on trying to get up to speed, right? Kind of a thing. And then it needs to connect with all the other people running it, and it needs to coordinate that as well, like what it needs to do. So there's going to be a lot of automatic stuff going on in there. But we definitely want to give people the choice of what to predict. So like if I download and I pick predicting the price of Bitcoin, I need to have that choice, right? I want to predict the price of Bitcoin, but I want to predict this data stream guy, giving me the price rather than this guy, because this guy might be, giving me bad information, and I'm just sitting there trying to predict his thing, but he's like giving all the money to someone else, right? So even though I'm getting good predictions, right, and then he's just taking my predictions and my compute, so I'm not getting any money. So that's going to be part of it. They'll have lists of people they can pick to predict, and then different data streams, and they can see what kind of money they can get from each one, right? And they may find a good one or collaborate on that or whatever. So anyway, so that's what will happen in the DPS. So the DPS is not like Kaggle. I mean, it's not like, not like Keras. So like Keras is a programming language, it's a data science thing. You can, you have to know Python to do it. This is not going to be the DPS. The DPS is not like that at all. So it's just a software that you download that's got a GUI that you pick stuff from, and you'll be picking the thing you want to predict and help predict. And you can choose that based on how much money you get, whether you're, don't want to be altruistic and help some particular project out, stuff like that. As far as the data you use to predict, I think we're going to, like I said, I think that's most likely going to be automated, where, if you pick something, it may find it out, but we may open it up so that, like in a config file or something, so that people can kind of maybe choose it, or we may have like a advanced page or something where people can kind of like, hey, this one's not really helping me out, I want to pick this one over here, but we'll be kind of gathering that. We'll have a bunch of public data sources, and also people can provide their own data in some way if they'd like, by pointing to a file or something like that. Like we'll have maybe something like they have access to their LinkedIn feed or something. Maybe they connect up their their Twitter account to it or something, and they provide that data somehow to their particular local learning, their local learner or whatever. And so that's a possibility too. But everything we do will be non-data scientist oriented for the DPS. That's kind of the goal. So everything we do has to be like, we have to figure out how to get regular people to be able to do it. So that's going to be a challenge there. So it'll probably start out really kind of automated or at least random or something. Okay, so and he's asking, what will we provide to users? It's related to question 6 above. Will we provide some API or what? Yeah, so that's more like the hello world thing. Actually the DPS will be that, like the open source code for that. What that means is, what I'm saying about that is, even though we're making the software to be used by the end user and not the data scientist, that same software will function as a hello world, because you'll be able to go in and, as a developer, you'll be able to say, okay, this is an example, this is what they're doing, I can see what they're doing, and then I can try to change it out if I think I can do it better in some way, right? And but it'll be an example, like the ultimate example. We may have some simpler hello worlds that are like super easy, that are just like, here's some code, just like super simple short code. We probably will do that for the data scientists and stuff like that. And so when you say API, what that's going to be is what that's going to be is the ability to send a transaction. And so there has to be basically, for the transactions that we have, we'll have some code that actually sends a transaction from like a particular language. So we'll pick like whatever language. We'll not just do one, we'll do all of them, eventually, but we'll pick like one to start off with, we'll be like, okay, here is the adapter code, basically. So when you're talking about API, it's more like, here's code that will take the data that you have and create a transaction and send it to the neural network. Just like if you're working with Ethereum and Solidity, you work with the web3.js library. So if you have a web3.js library, you can create a transaction and send it to the network, right? And so we're going to have we don't need anything as complicated as the Web3. We're just going to have like code in different languages, a snippet of code in different languages that says this is the code to send the transaction to the neural network. So that's how that will work. So it won't particularly be an API. It'll just be example code there. On that same kind of path, the other thing we're going to do is also start making data adapters. So if you want to send data from different data sources, like if it's it could be an API that's online, and you want to just grab it from this API and send it to the neural network, or there's an API, somebody with data somehow, like if it comes from a sensor, like if it comes from a Fitbit, right? So if it's on a Fitbit, it goes to the phone, and then it has to be made into a transaction, a data transaction, and sent to the neural network, right? So there's going to be an adapter there that takes the data from that's the sensor device and formats it in the correct format, the correct standard format, and then sends it to the neural network. And so there's going to be data adapters for different kinds of data that people can use, that we're going to create. So there'll be like, we'll start out with like the most basic one, and then add on different data sources as we go, the most useful, and then we'll do that as we go. And that's the other thing we're doing. All right, so number 4, how can we decide which predictors are good or bad? We will use bad predictors as distributed data storage, right? No, that's not. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what that is, but hopefully the previous discussion helped out with that. So help to understand that. So basically, Alexander's asking, he's asking something about how we know whether predictors are good or bad, and I'm not exactly sure what he's asking. Maybe he can ask that. Maybe try to make that more clear. But let me skip to 5. How predictors will understand type of data predictions, which protocol will be used for several neural network connections. I think what he's asking about there is about the data format. So how do you know, and how do you know as a predictor what you're predicting? So as an example, let's start with some examples. So the Bitcoin price. So with the Bitcoin price, when you put in the Oracle transaction, you say this is the data that I'm going to start sending. I'm going to start sending, an int. I'm not an int, a floating point, 64-bit or 32-bit, because you probably don't need much. 16-bit. I'm going to send a 16-bit floating point, and that's it. So that's the actual data format. That's all you got to say, but you need to give metadata. This is the Bitcoin, the BTC to USD price. And that is what I want, right? And you may provide more information, like you may provide the actual exchange that you're getting the data from, so they know which exchange, you're getting the actual price for, so they can try to predict that exchange and not a bunch of other exchanges, right? If that's all you want, as an example. Also, if you have private information that nobody else knows, that you think will be beneficial to give up to them, and nobody else knows it, like it's not public, it's nothing they can find, and you think it's going to be beneficial, then you would provide that data as well into the Oracle blockchain. Basically, what you do is you put a link to where that data can be found, and you'd have to set that up so that people could then the predictors could go grab it and download it, and get it from you as the Oracle. And that's one thing you can do as well. So that's how you know what the data is. So as it gets more complicated, let's say you're trying to, beyond the Bitcoin price, let's say you're trying to predict what news articles that come out on a news feed. So there's a news feed, and there's these articles that come out constantly, like one every 10 minutes or something, right? And so you need to provide and say, this is the actual format of the data that I'm going to be providing. And so what we've decided for the Neureal network system is to make all data, no matter what, at the very end, be formatted in tensors. And so you have to put it into a tensor. And so whatever data you have to format it into a tensor format, right? And you can provide like metadata on that tensor, but the actual data you send has to just be in a tensor format. So a tensor, if you don't know what it is, look it up. But it's why they call TensorFlow. But anyway, if you look up tensor, I'll go into that. I should go into that in a different hangout, but a different live stream, but that's the format we decided on. And so you have to take whatever data and put it into a tensor. So for the Bitcoin price, a floating point 16 is actually a tensor. It's just a one dimension or a zero-dimensional tensor, right? Just a vector. A vector. Yeah. So it's just one number, right? And so that's how you'd specify it, using a tensor description. And so you could have that way you could have databases in there. You could put databases in there. You could put images. You could put pretty much anything. So let's say you're trying to predict the next frame of a video. So there's this, or the next frame of a live streamed camera, like what you're seeing right here. So if you want to predict the next frame of it, frame by frame by frame, right? So you would take each frame as an image, or maybe not each frame, maybe every 100 frames or something. That would be really a lot of data. So, but to put it in Neureal, you would take the one frame, and that's what you would specify as the data format. And so you would say it's a it's a two-dimensional. Each entry or whatever is going to be three bytes deep, right? So red, green, and blue, and then and that's the format. So then they would expect that format each time. Now the content, of course, is going to be completely different every time, and that's what makes it different, right? But you need to specify the tensor format for the of the data. So hopefully that answers that question there. Why are we planning to use SDG as optimization? He says. So the DPS is going to be interesting because it's going to leverage the architecture of the neural network to get that distributed processing to happen, and it's not going to actually use SGG. So it is going to use it locally, and it might use it in collaborative groups, but it's not going to use it for the large neural network output that's going to come out from the DPS. So it's definitely going to use it locally. And if you work out something with someone so if I have some buddies or some friends, and I trust them really well, and I'm like, hey, let's all get together and provide a kind of a collaborative node and see how we can compete with all of our GPUs, or you might have a bunch of stuff in a data center or something. Those would use the SDG, and you would use that. The DPS we would set up so that those would use a form of SDG for those. But not for the output from the neural network. So that's not actual SGG. So the reason I think that he was asking that is because there's this bounty out where we're trying to compare the different architectures and speed and reliability and how what their upper limits are as far as accuracy goes. And so we're going to get metrics and actually compare what's out there as far as AI and what can Neureal provide as far as different metrics. So that's what the bounty's about. And in the bounty, we start off with the very basic, excuse me, the very basic types of current neural network AI, not AI generally, but the neural network, not neural network, the neural network, and then types of AI, and so just the single. We start off with that, and then we do each with the same exact problem. We try it with each different type of architecture as we go, right? And then we see what kind of results we get and make charts, really good, nice charts that show it, show the comparison. And so to do that, we have to have all the different types of architectures that are out there for AI, and so that's what that was about. So the first one is SDG, just running on a single machine. So stochastic gradient descent, just on one machine, not multiple, just one machine. And so that is a basic type of AI. So that you'd run on one machine. Then you would try it on a whole bunch of machines that copy the model between them and use that type of SGD. And that would be another one that's used out there right now. And that's a type of multi-computer collaborative AI. And then we would try these other ones that Ben Taylor, our advisor, talked about, where you, instead of copying the model between all the computers that are doing it, you only do random weights. So you only copy random weights of the model, and then and as you're training, and then when at the end you can collect the final thing, and you can use that, or at any point in time if it's ongoing, you can grab all of the current models, and you just don't do it all the time, right? So you have big periods of time when the different models are different, but they're still sharing some information. And then there's another one where you can do that with just the last layer of the model, right? So you're only doing it on the last layer. You only share the last layer with everyone, but the beginning layers aren't as good. So that's another one we were going to try, and then you actually compare that to the neural network and what it can provide. And so that's the bounty that we have out, and that's what that's about, and that's where SGG plays into it. But to answer the question about the DPS and what we're doing with SGD in the DPS is that we are going to have the local model run with SGG, most likely. Maybe not. I don't know for sure, but and then if people want to collaborate, they can try out regular standard SGG model architectures for the collaboration between their computers. But but for the neural network itself, it doesn't use SGG at all. So hopefully that answers the question. And I think that's the last question. So if anybody's still awake or anybody's still around, I'm still awake enough to answer some questions. So if there's any otherwise, so if not, then I'll. Anyways, anybody have any questions? Well, thank you, Oleg. That's very nice of you. All right. Yay. I'm sure you will in the future, though, Alexander. He was asking if he's saying that he doesn't have any now, but I'm sure he will. All right. Well, I'll close this stream up. It's been a great night, and I hope to. I probably won't be able to do these every week, but I will definitely try to get them at least once a week, maybe every week. I mean, once every 2 weeks, so maybe every week. So just so that people can really get, kind of do their due diligence, look at the project, really get an idea of what we're planning in a very detailed way if they'd like. So. So I'm really excited to really get this out there as well, and so people can see that we've been working on this for a long time. And anyway, so well, good night, everyone, and or good morning, or whatever it is. Good day, wherever you are. I hope this has been good, and I would put the bounty code up, but I think we need to wait till we do the regular thing and have Kyler do that, or have somebody else do it or something. So we'll get that started and going again too. So this isn't a replacement for the regular live stream, just so everybody knows. Anyway, well, good night, and thank you for all being here and those great questions, and I loved answering them. So thanks, everyone. So we'll see you later. Bye-bye.